Good morning, everybody. This is Martin John, and I am here to present the Tao of the Day. Tao of the Day is a program I've been doing for a number of years on this platform. Before it was even Noom Vibe, it was Wisdom, and we did this for, like 2 or 3 years almost. And Tao of the Day is where I invite you up to pick a number between 1 and 81. So Tao of the Day is centered around a text that was written around 600 BCE. So it's an ancient text, and it's Chinese, and it's, we're not going to speak Chinese, but it's an ancient text filled with enigmatic wisdom entitled the Tao Te Ching. And the Tao Te Ching is a wonderful book that is, we all experience the world through the subjective. So everything that you have lived in your life kind of paints the picture of the world that you see. Now, there is an objective truth, which we as individuals really can't experience that objective truth. We can get a sense of the objective truth by being still within our subjective experience. And so what the Tao does is it kind of guides us to that objective truth. If there is objective truth, you don't need to be told about it. You know about it, or you have access to it. And if it is objective truth, it can't be just expressed to you. Someone just can't say, well, this is the truth, because the truth is so deep and so complicated. The truth is the truth for each and every one of us. And yet it can't be expressed with the same words, because each and every one of us experience each word subjectively. So it's within us. This is why we talk about meditating and mindfulness and all that kind of stuff, even though those things aren't the answer. Those things are ways to get to this point, to see the objective truth of the universe. As an artist, I utilized the making of art as a way in to experience the objective truth. Now there are, anybody can do that. So you could be a plumber and you can do that. You can be It's about stepping away from the subjectiveness of the moment, the you. This is why in my work, and I talk a lot about things from the standpoint of addiction, because I'm got 23 years clean and sober. And so when I talk about things from that standpoint, I talk about living under the influence, right? When you're not yourself, you're living under the influence. And you can be living under the influence of your subjective experience, right? You're living under the influence of your parents. You live under the influence of your parents because you have a subjective experience in which it includes your parents. Someone else that lived next door to you have different parents, and they have different frames of reference for the world, and they have a different experience in the world. But there is truth beyond all of that. There is an objective truth. That objective truth is arrived at through subjective experience, but recognizing that your experience is subjective and nobody else is having your experience. And nobody else can have your experience. And the experience that you're having is purely subjective, meaning that when you get upset that someone cut you off, it's really not someone cutting you off, but you're having the experience of being cut off, right? That person doesn't have anything to do with this. It's about you having this experience right now. And what are we going to do with that? Is that something that we can then take a hold of and learn from, so that we can have, so that we can understand some sort of objective truth? What is the truth? And how do I get through this subjective experience to that truth? So I'm going to once again invite you guys up. I am going to open up I have a random number generator, and I'm going to go ahead and open that just so that if you don't want to pick a number, I can always roll a random number generator for you. So I opened it and it chose 69. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 69. An invitation to conflict. You know, we'll always get invitations from other people. Sometimes we'll get invitations to conflict. Sometimes we'll get invitations to engage. Sometimes we'll get invitations to disagree. All sorts of things can happen, right? But it is the invitation to conflict. And I'm sure that we're going to be able to talk about this from many different aspects, but that's what 69 is entitled, an invitation to conflict. In conflict, the master will never host aggression. She would much prefer to be a guest and relinquish space rather than claim it. This allows the host space to exhaust themselves without the master having to weaponize anything. Wanting to control through aggression is foolish. This underestimates conflict and its results. When you choose to conflict with another, you look down on them and lose your 3 lessons. By creating an enemy, you become an enemy. When 2 forces oppose each other, the one who relinquishes prevails. In our society today, it's so hard to relinquish space because we're being asked constantly to prove ourselves, and we're being asked constantly, and we're being told constantly that it's almost an ethical right or it is the right thing to do to stand your ground and get everything you can out of everyone around you. Greed prevails, and there's no need to ever admit you're wrong. No need to ever admit that you don't have all the information. You know, this starts with this line, in conflict, the master will never host aggression. There was a time not long ago, my last flare-up, which was about a year ago, my last MS flare-up was little over a year ago. And the reason that my MS flared up is because I had a right to be compensated for an error of a company that I was engaged with. I don't want to go into the details because it's frustrating, but I had a right to be compensated, and I leaned into that right. I was right. I was like, I have a right to be compensated, and so I'm going to get upset so that I can get compensated, because the world right now says, well, we don't want to compensate anybody unless you raise a stink or something. And then if you raise a stink, okay, then we'll yield. But no matter how much stink I would have raised, they weren't yielding. And I was like, but I have a right to be compensated. I was hosting the aggression, and I was leaning into it, which ultimately, was like water on stone. It wasn't doing anything. I mean, eventually it'll do something maybe, but I was just breaking. I was breaking because I was leaning into my anger. And by leaning into my anger, I caused myself to have a flare-up of my MS. Now, I could say it's their fault. I could be the victim and say it's their fault. They did this. But my experience, from my perspective, the subjective experience that I was having, was that I was leaning into my frustration. And by leaning into my frustration, leaning into the right that I had to be compensated, the right that I had to be, I had a right to be upset because they, when framed in the way that I wanted to frame it, they were doing bad by me. Now, could it be framed a different way? Yes, of course. But my subjective experience wasn't going to be doing that. Because my subjective experience was that they were in the wrong. And they half-heartedly admitted that they were in the wrong, but didn't want to compensate me for anything. So in conflict, the master will never host aggression. The first thing we have to question is, am I hosting this aggression? And I was. And that still caused me. I was the one that suffered from it because my MS flared up. Why did my MS flare up? Well, MS is an autoimmune disease. Stress, other things like that, will cause a flare up of MS. And so I caused it myself by leaning into the conflict. The next line here is, she would much prefer to be a guest and relinquish space rather than claim it. Now, in this situation that I was in, there was no being a guest of conflict, being the guest of aggression, because they weren't going to be aggressive because they were in the wrong and they knew that they were in the wrong. But if I could have allowed them space, if I could have stepped back and just said, okay, please fix this, Now, they did make me jump through some hoops in order to get it fixed. And they tried to not fix it. Well, they may have attempted to not fix it because I was so angry. They were just they wanted to stick it to me because I was hosting aggression. And they were just able to avoid it because, they weren't going to take the abuse or whatever. And good for them. Which then would cause me to get even more angry. And then I'd lean into that more, right? Being the victim. And I realized what I was doing wrong, and I told myself, well, you're going to do this until you don't. As you guys know, I like to say, and this is happening. This is happening, and I don't like that I'm doing this, but here I am doing it. And then it caused me to have a flare-up, which is a lesson I must have needed. So this is, so I'm hosting the aggression in that exchange. And what happens is this next line. This allows, so if I would rather relinquish space rather than claim it, this allows the host, who was me at the time, space to exhaust themselves without the master having to weaponize anything. So I did exhaust myself. I exhausted myself so much I had to go to the hospital, right? I exhausted myself so much I went to the emergency room and I had to, deal with an MS flare-up that I wasn't expecting to have. So this allows the host to space to exhaust themselves without the master having to weaponize anything. When you can just receive, when you can just relinquish space. It's oftentimes when I find myself in a place where someone is hosting aggression against me, I can allow them to have that aggression. I can allow them to have the space they need to be angry and not care. Right? I don't have to care about I don't have to be invested in calming them down. I don't have to be invested in what they're upset about. I don't have to be invested in trying to prove they're wrong, that I did something. I know that there have been times where I've been yelled at or I've been, quote unquote, in trouble. And I have just allowed the person who is mad at me enough space to I've allowed them enough space to question, like, wait, why am I upset? Why is this such a big deal? Now, it might take a couple days. I might just kind of be like, okay, like that's one of my favorite. And there are people in my life who it's funny too, that my response to things is sometimes okay and okay, good. Like I don't know what to respond. They'll say something to me and then I'll be like, okay, good. It's not about dismissing them as much as it's about just like, well, I receive this information. That's it. Someone might say, oh, I went to the store and this happened and they didn't have this and all of this and all of these things and this is so upset and da da da. And I say, oh, okay. There is no reason for me to either align or not align or not respond. Like I can respond with, okay. It's like, oh, my family did this and all of this and all of these things. Oh, okay. It's like, but you're not going on this journey with me. No. Is that what you want? Like, did you want me to be invested in your, frustration? Did you want me to support your victimization? I mean, is that really what you want? I think a lot of us do that. We have friends who are just like, I'm going to say something, and then they not only repeat what I say or what have you, they support it. They build a foundation underneath it, telling me why it's okay for me to be angry, why it's okay for me to host conflict. That's why it's great here. It's just like without the master having to weaponize anything. You don't weaponize anything. You just, oh, okay. Okay, good. Yeah. Like someone the other day was saying to me, like, oh, I'm frustrated and, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oh, okay, good. And they look at me confused, like, okay, good. What do you mean, okay, good? Well, it's nice. It's nice to not know what to do sometimes. But we know what to do too much. It's good. It's good. You don't know what to do. Oh, Cecilia's going to join me. So nice.
How are you?
Hey, Cecilia.
Good morning.
I am. Good morning. Where are you these days?
I'm currently in Missouri.
Missouri?
Yeah, I have a friend here that I'm visiting. I've been here for...
Wonderful.
Yeah.
How long have you been there?
For about a month now.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to let everyone know that Martin John Garcia was the third community member that I met live in the flesh in Chicago.
In Chicago, yeah. That was a beautiful walk.
It sure was. And I also wanted to say that a lot of the time I don't know what to do or what I'm doing. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I always figure
and
it
like
out.
I say,
right?
okay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Like let's just be here.
Uh-huh.
Because if you know what to do, if you know where you're at, if you know what you're doing, not big honks over there in Missouri.
Oh my gosh, the big trucks with the mufflers and the motorcycles. A lot of those. But it's early morning, so not too much of that yet. But go ahead.
Yeah, there's still plenty. Like the okay good it's always like supporting people where they are. It's like, oh, I'm confused and I don't know what to do. Okay, good. It's just like, okay, well, you can be here. It's okay to be here. It's like people often don't want to be where they are, but here you are.
Here I am. And also, I think complaining, it really doesn't do anything for the team. And I feel like we get a lot of that, we just puke this on everybody and then run away,
Yeah.
I think it's very unfair.
Join me. It's, there's one of the verses where it says, individuals that are lost in manifestation try and convince others to join them in struggle.
Yeah, no thanks. And I was saying a couple of days ago, actually I say it often, don't fight for your limitations.
Right.
Don't make excuses for these things, you say you want to do, but have a billion reasons as to why you can't.
Right.
And they're not true.
I was talking to someone the other day at an event, and I was like, "Oh, you should visit our mutual friend." And she immediately was just like, "No, I don't want to bother them." And I was just like, "Okay, like you could, like that's fine. Like I'll mention briefly that you're the one saying no."
Yeah.
Like no one's pushing you away. But if that's what you're saying, that's what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
And just
so
to let people know that you're making this decision. And that's fine.
Right.
Like there's nothing wrong with the decision you're making, but don't say that you want a deeper relationship with somebody and then be like, "Oh, I wish we had a deeper relationship, but oh no, I can't do anything about it." It's like, oh, well,
yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah, we're very interesting creatures.
Yes, we are. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah, I tend to not follow what everyone else thinks about, putting somebody else out or whatever, like if somebody is inviting me or says like, "Well, you're welcome anytime." I'm going to take that as, the truth,
I'm welcome
your
anytime.
word.
Yeah.
And I'll be in touch. And if it's not the right time or not a good time, cool. But, I'm not going to feel like I'm putting somebody out or, being too pushy or,
Yeah.
That is how we connect with our words, and I'll listen to those.
It's so funny when you hear somebody say something like that, and you question them on it. Like not you, but when people are just like, "Oh, are you sure?" I'm just kind of like, a lot of times when I say something, and people ask me if I'm sure, I just say, "Take it as it is." Whatever. Like I'm being honest. And if I have to convince you that I'm being honest, you're asking too much of me.
Yeah. And
because you immediately think that I'm not for whatever reason.
Right.
And it's like, that's an insult.
Right. And I come back, am I sure? No, I'm not sure. Never mind.
Right.
Smart,
just do it. Do whatever you want, but know what I'm saying. Like, I back that up.
Right. Yeah. And then I'm just going to...
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I'm hoping you're going to pick a number and join us today.
Yeah. I didn't even think about a number, so let's go 44.
44.
I feel like you just read that one recently. I think maybe yesterday, the day before.
I haven't read this in a while, actually.
Okay, cool. Great. Let's stick with that. And I might randomly mute if there's a...
Yeah, of course. I know you're out on a walk. Fame or integrity? Okay, the title of this is The Influence of Excess. So fame or integrity? Which of these do you focus on seeing and obtaining? Possessions or fulfillment? In which do you spend your time investing? Success or failure, of which has offered you the most growth? Under the influence, you spend yourself accumulating only loss and regret. Fulfill your needs and be content. When you know excess is excessive, you'll be open to receiving harmony.
All me,
All you.
All me. Excess, success or failures. And I don't even like to say failures very much because, did I actually fail if I got back up and, went at it again and decided to keep going,
Well, that's the thing. I talk to people about success a lot because people love success and people want to achieve success. And I'm like, well, there is no destination, and so the idea that you would achieve success means that you have to continue achieving success from that point. And people don't think about that. People don't think about like, oh, just, like if you achieved success in a marathon and 6 years beyond that marathon, you're continuing to talk about that marathon, ain't nobody listening to you anymore. Because it's like, yeah, what are you going to do now though? Right? Exactly. Like, it's like, yes, you were successful 6 years ago when you won the local marathon or whatever, and I'm very proud of you for that. But would you please take off the bib number and like just cook dinner, damn it? Like, like the idea of success is, just like in recovery, we talk about that's a bill due every day. Right. It's like, and that's something that's in your mind. And it's neither success nor failure. It is this that you're experiencing right now that is going to be added to your subjective life and you get to grow with, whatever that is.
I love growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says here, under the influence, you spend yourself. So it's not like you're spending money. It's not like you're spending energy. You spend yourself. Mm-hmm. When you're under the influence of what is success, when you're under the influence of how did I fail, when you're under the influence of all those things, you just give up the big picture of you growing into who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't even think really of like either of those words, like success. What does that matter? You know, not in the way that we usually think of it. Success to me isn't about, money or fame or, everybody's like looking up at me. Like, no, I don't care about any of that stuff.
Right.
Living my life as an adventure is, what I care about, and, the connections that I make and all of that stuff. But yeah, I don't usually speak about success nor failures. Right.
It's this big picture of being. Like you get to be.
That's it.
Right now.
Yes.
And the moment you start to build a hierarchical structure of this way of being is better than this way of being, right? Then as soon as that hierarchical structure starts created, then you are spending yourself because you are limiting yourself to a small idea of what being can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I always say like our imagination is so limited that we can't even think of the possibilities, Right. Like there's so much, but we do that to ourselves, keep ourselves in this little space, in these little tiny dreams. And if something goes a little, out of,
sideways,
exactly, ways, then we freak out, but we don't think about like how this could be working in our favor and so much better than that little tiny idea that we had.
Yeah, rather than being neutral and observing how it's coming out, we predict what's going to happen and we say this is bad. This, just like that story of the rancher and the horse. He runs away, then comes back, and then the son breaks his leg, and then like all of these. It's just like we'll see what happens. Let's chill the fuck out. Let's just be here and like watch it unfold because we don't know what's going to happen. Even if we want to try to prove how creative we are in imagining what we want and what we can have, it's still just a drop in a bucket of possibility.
Yeah, it's so limited, right?
So limited. And we can't prove how limited it is, but you can attempt to prove how creative you are, how imaginative you are. And if that's like, oh, wow, that's impressively imaginative, trust me, the universe is more so.
That's right. We'll try and come at it like another angle and say, no, that's not the way either.
That's
Just
right. That's not it either. Yep. There's that meditation where it's, I'm not this, not that, like I forget what it's called, but it's like, nope, not that, not that, not that. And it's always the one thing comes in, you say, nope, it's more than that. It's more than that. It's more than that. And you just keep going through everything until and that's like a big sort of meditation. And, I forget what it's called, but I've talked about it to a number of people and picked it up at some point. But here it says, as it wraps up, fulfill your needs and be content. When you know excess is excessive, you'll be open to receiving harmony. And that's exactly what we're talking about. You'll be open to receiving harmony because that's what's here.
That's right. And I mean, that's, me. I'm living out of my suitcase for 6 years.
Yeah.
And I have that, excess. And I'm like, wait, when I start accumulating things on like my next trip, I'm like, no, I gotta downsize some more.
Yeah.
And yes, what did I receive in these 6 years of these travels? Definitely harmony.
Sure. Moment to moment. And anytime any sort of discord comes in, that's just an opportunity to look at ourselves and where we're at and where we are resisting or not receiving harmony.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or where we're under the influence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I say often to, protect your peace. And that means, the negativity or, drama, all that stuff, is so unnecessary. But we get to choose, which is pretty awesome. But,
we do. Yeah. We get to choose. Now, sometimes people are so in the dark, they don't see that they have a choice, but that's just because you're under the influence. Yeah. Me too.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But then, you open up. Yeah. You open up and people, then you start to realize that people are around you that can bring you to the next place, that can help you. You just dropped off. If you want to come back up, you're definitely welcome to, of course. I wanted to kind of go over the first 3 lines just a bit because you and I, we've been talking about this and you've been living in this way for so long. We talk at this at a very high level, right? We say, oh, you're going to be, and we understand what we mean by that, even though that might not be something that is common for everybody to be, So I'm going to look at these first three lines, which are really important and why they are so important. So fame or integrity, which of these two do you focus on seeing and obtaining? Okay, so fame and integrity, these are opposite. These are sort of opposites, right? That's not to say that everybody that's famous doesn't have integrity, but especially in today's world, we look at how people become famous or what fame is, and it's like I'm going to gain the attention of people and then sell that attention for ads for things that I might not believe in. And is that integrity? Is that the integrity that we want to hold? We want to say products can serve you, right? And so fame or integrity, which of these do you focus on seeing or obtaining? Now, there's no judgment here, whether you focus on obtaining fame or whether you focus on obtaining integrity. The question is simply which. are you focused on seeing and obtaining? Which are you focused on obtaining? Which are you focused on seeing in the world? Because if you're focused on seeing integrity, where is your attention going? Right? That's why when I wrote this, I wanted to write seeing and obtaining. So do you see fame but want to obtain integrity? Because now there's a shift, right? Now, like if you're focused on seeing fame, you're not necessarily going to be focused on being able to obtain as much integrity because you're focused on seeing fame. Possessions or fulfillment, in which do you spend your time investing? Once again, there's no judgment here. There's no right and wrong here. There's just possessions or fulfillment. Of which do you spend your time investing? If you work and work and work so you can get money, so you can buy products, that might be said that you are looking to invest in possessions. You know, and if you work and work and work to gain money so that you can, you know, if you work enough so that you can have enough time to spend with your family and go out and play and you know, really be present for your family and for your home and for all of those, maybe you can call that fulfillment. But again, it's just a question. Which do you spend your time investing? Success or failure, of which of these has offered you the most growth? Once again, no judgment, but it's about being aware. It's about being mindful. It's about looking and observing. And when we can observe if we can observe at what we're focused on seeing and obtaining, if we can observe what we're spending on our time investing, and if we can observe where we're getting the most growth, then we can understand ourselves a little bit deeper. Now it says, under the influence you spend yourself, accumulating only loss and regret. So when you're under the influence, so if you're under the influence of fame, or if you're under the influence of possession or status, if you're under the influence of success, and that could be attached to status. Whereas living a life of integrity, you know, living a life in which, you know, maybe you can focus on fame and stuff as well, but if you're focused on obtaining fame, if you're focused on obtaining possessions, if you're focused on obtaining what could be deemed as success, then other people may be around defining those things for you. So you're under the influence of the definition of these things. And so what you do is you accumulate this concept of loss and regret. Fulfill your needs and be content. When you know excess is excessive, you'll be open to receiving harmony. Cecilia, you're back.
Yes, I think I have better service now.
Good.
Yes, there's a gentleman that I read a few of his books, Kapil Gupta, and he used to call that the prescriptions, you know, you know, being under influence and stuff. These are like the prescriptions that, you know, that we've
have picked up along the way.
Yeah, made for each other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, you know. It's like you have a prescription of how to, and we're all, like, I don't know, especially in the first world, in my experience right now, so many people, I don't know that there's anybody that didn't grow up under a very capitalistic consumer, you know, like everybody that's alive right now has been affected by the 80s very deeply. And the greedy 80s have been so a part of the core of everything. I mean, Donald Trump is the 80s. You know, he is the epitome of the 80s. I mean, I remember being a kid and he was everywhere in the 80s, you know, and lifestyles of the rich and famous, you know, like something like that. Like, and it's like, oh my God, like, and so for him to have all of this, it's very aligned, because that sort of, that time and everything that was going on in that time. This doesn't have anything to do about Trump. It just has to do with, you know, just the concept of the 80s and the you know, the deep cocaine, all of the money, all of the, you know, life. I mean, that show, Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, was something that I remember as a kid, and I really just despised it. Even as a kid, I was always like, "Oh, I don't like this, whatever it is," and it just rubbed me the wrong way as a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that, and like The Love Boat, you know, just these really super glamorous lifestyles that we should all be trying to reach or achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, and all of those things, you know, Miami Vice and even, you know, even Different Strokes, right? Like Different Strokes was about these two like inner city kids that are in a penthouse and like, you know, and it's like in this wealthy, and it's all about, you know, and then there's Mr. Belvedere, which was a great show, but it's still, here's a person with a butler in their house, you know, and like all of these shows about like, you know, even the Cosby Show was this, you know, doctor and lawyer and like all of these things. And it was such an interesting time. And it's all about aspiring to be wealthy and aspiring to be, you know, and like, oh, you don't have any problems. And because, you know, like, and the problems that you do have can be solved. And they didn't always solve them with money. I'm not trying to say that. They solved them with caring often. But it was still this backdrop of like wealth and greed and like what success looked like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now like prescriptions make even more sense talking about all those, you know, and the prescriptions we're being fed to believe that, you know, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
No, I'm here. Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, well, I'm going to drop off. And
absolutely. Thanks for coming up and saying that. I like that term. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that makes a lot of sense, you know, and under the influence, it's all, you know, a prescription that we're like feeding to each other. And this is the way it should be.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Like, have a great day. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
And this is that normal. This is the way it's supposed to be. You know, and it's an interesting thing because I think about it where, you know, with childhood, where it's like, this is what my childhood was supposed to be. And I'm like, well, you don't like you just think that is what you wanted. But again, your imagination, as we were talking about the first time you came up, your imagination is nothing compared to what the universe can do.
Right.
So it's like, yes, this childhood wasn't ideal when you start to look at the childhoods of other people, but now you're measuring rather than just having your experience.
Yeah, and I had somebody actually yesterday say to me, I'm going through this insert, because I don't want to get like personal, but like insert any, you know, trial or tribulation you could imagine. Here, I shouldn't be going through this thing at this age, you know, and not even a health concern, but something that we would think of, you know, as a family thing, you know. And I said,
right.
Who said that?
Right.
Said, who said you shouldn't be going through this at this age? You know, why do you think that? Like, everything is uncertain. Like, I don't know why you think that you, number one, you, as opposed to anyone else, right, shouldn't be going through this. and at this age.
Right, right.
I know that you think or you thought it was supposed to be another way, but who said you shouldn't be going through this at this age?
Right.
You know?
And wouldn't it be better if someone else was going through it?
Right.
Wouldn't it well, wouldn't you be happier if I was going through that? I'm sorry, you broke up there. What was that?
Because then it'd be like, well, poor Cece, but I'm okay over here.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, no, I'm good. So, and that's the thing. It's like people like you, like I get to go through this so that Cece doesn't have to.
Yeah. Right.
And you could look at me and go, oh, I am so grateful for you for going through this because I don't have to. And I can support you in that, not by being a ditch diver with you, but by loving you as you're going through this quietly.
Yes.
And supporting your system and supporting your being while you're going through this, because I know you're doing it for me, so I don't have to.
And, I'm watching you and learning about strength and resiliency and, courage and, all of this stuff rather than poor me.
Right.
And,
and that's the big, and that victim, like I'm a victim of my life. Your life is a gift, and we have to be able to see that.
Yeah. And, again, it's not like I woke up one day and I was like, oh my gosh, my life is amazing. No, like I went through my, childhood that wasn't the most, pleasant at the time. I don't think of it like that anymore anyway. But,
right.
It took work to get back to this place of like understanding, what a blessing it is every single day. But there was, definitely all those times of feeling that way. Like I was a victim to this bad hand that was dealt to me. Right. I would have traded my life in for anybody else's. Didn't matter. And I always say often that, like I do know some awesome people, doing beautiful things, but gosh, I wouldn't trade my adventure in for anyone else's that I know now. So
absolutely. Grateful. And like, I am so glad that you're having your experience because you're doing so beautifully with it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like, and that's the thing. Like, we get to have the experiences that we have because of who we are, and we grow. And it's these subjective experiences that we're having that contribute so much to the backdrop of all that we are all being, the one objectiveness, like we're having these subjective experiences and being brought to the objective truth of, love and connectedness and harmony.
And that's where it's at.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
That's where it's at. Thanks so much, Martin John.
Absolutely. I love you. Have a wonderful.
Yes, you too. Speak soon. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for that.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yep. Bye. Swap? Can I swap? Keep? Okay. Burp. I was trying to swap, but CC jumped off, and so I'm bringing yours truly. How are you, dear?
I'm doing well. As far as well as measurable, of course.
Where are you now?
I am sitting with my lovely daughter, Jaleesa, in her garden. She's on a lunch break, so I've got half an hour of her beautiful time. And then we set sail again into the wind that Jaleesa probably created.
So you're going to spend some time with me and Jaleesa?
Yes, I am.
Okay, but you're going to So are we going to pick a number?
I'm going to ask if Jaleesa will choose a number from the
wonderful
now today.
1 to
Choose a
81.
number. Well, let's get Martin describe what it is, and then you choose it.
Oh, do you not know? Yeah, there's 81 chapters, and so I'm going to ask you to pick a number between 1 and 81, and each of these chapters has some enigmatic wisdom and other things kind of going on in it to help guide us to live a more reasonable life. And so that can be interpreted a number of ways, but I interpret it in the way of living in a way in which we're not asking others to change for us.
Yeah. She's listening. She's watching Brad move the strawberry about, which has got a huge strawberry on it. But yeah, beautiful. So pick a number then, G.
Number 7.
Number 7.
Number 7. 7's a lucky number for many people. So number 7, and I don't know what's going on in your life right now, but number 7 is entitled The Wisdom of Not Having a Preference. So just with the title, we can start by thinking, well, are there things that you prefer? Like, would you prefer, Brad, to not move that just in case the strawberry falls off? Are there preferences that you carry, and are there preferences that you have that might infringe on your ability to be fulfilled? Now, I'm going to go ahead and read this and see what it says. And so it says, Tao is infinite. And Tao, if you don't know, is the sort of kind of root backdrop of the universe. It's the law of nature, maybe we can say. So Tao is infinite. It doesn't grow old or tired. Because it has no preference for itself, it can always persist. The master puts herself last and always finds herself first. By being detached from preference, she can give herself to what is and find fulfillment there.
Lovely.
Yeah. So what stood out to you, either of you, if anything at all? Because sometimes when reading these, it's hard to take in the whole thing, but maybe a word or a phrase or a concept came through.
I don't know, it's hard to say, really.
Yeah.
I think it feels like being in the now.
Yeah. You know, this starts with Tao is infinite. We're going to go through this a little bit more closely. So Tao is infinite, right? The law of nature is infinite. Before even the earth was here, Tao existed. There was a law that kind of created the earth, and that unfolded then from there. It doesn't grow old or tired. So that's nice. We would like to not grow old or tired, right? So we want to emulate the Tao a little bit. Then it says, because it has no preference for itself, it can always persist. What is that? How does that resonate? What does that say to you?
Well, tell him. If you don't know, just say.
I don't know.
So because it has no preference for itself, it can always persist. Every time you have a preference for yourself, every time you step into something and have a preference, you're going to either get that preference or not, right?
And you're going to drop everything else. You're going to drop everything else as well. When you've got a preference for something, then you are releasing every other option. You're releasing all of the other kind of things that could happen if you were thinking about multi-universe.
Well, it's like when you flip a coin and you secretly know what you want it to land on.
Yeah.
Right. When you say, okay, I'm going to either go to the beach or I'm going to go to the mall. I'm going to flip it, and then you flip it and you see you're going to go to the mall because and you go, damn, I wanted to go to the beach, but you didn't know you wanted to go to the beach until you flipped it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's like that preference inside of you. And then, of course, you screw the fucking coin and you go to the beach because you realize that you wanted to go to the beach. But the thing is that we're holding so much of that preference, and we don't even realize how much of that preference we're holding. And as that happens, we start to erode ourselves.
Yeah.
We start to close off other options because it's like, well, now, of course, if you're flipping a coin to choose what you want to do, that's one thing. But if you're sitting in the garden spending your lunch break with Julie, like maybe you had a preference to spend it doing something else, and then this is actually taking a little bit from you. But if it's like, if she arrives and it's like, it's a surprise and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sit and I'm going to change my plans because I have no preference. This is what it means to persist. Because eventually, if you have to change your plans and it takes energy from you to change your plans because you have a preference, you're going to be exhausted at the end of the day.
Yeah, so you're just going with it, aren't you? You just
right.
Go with whatever occurs, and it's okay, because there's always something in that for you anyway.
And so it said Tao is infinite. What was that? I'm sorry.
We're just watching Brad packing all of our stuff away, feeling the heat of the day. It's very humid here. And he's, just running around like a headless chicken, getting us all ready to go, because Julie is showing a preference to sitting on her big fat laurels and doing nothing.
And if Brad...
It's great.
And if Brad's preference is that you help, he's going to slowly get frustrated. And again, remember the first line, Tao is infinite. It doesn't grow old or tired. And it doesn't grow old or tired because it has no preference for itself. Now, Brad needs to know that he is going to have the energy and he's going to be given the energy and he might have a preference to leave, at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that he has a preference for that. Now he has to load up the van and stuff by then so that he can leave.
Yes.
But if he didn't have that preference and he was like, oh, you know what? I'm done loading the van for me for the moment and I'm going to go have a cup of tea. Well, then maybe I'm not going to leave until 2:30 or 3. Well, that has to be okay, because if it's not okay, he's going to start to grow old and tired.
Or he might sit down and then allow someone else to be able to help load that van.
Well, I made
tea. Or make a cup of tea. Yeah.
No, I made a tea.
Yeah, you made a tea.
And this is why the master puts herself last, because it's like you have to be able to go with the flow. You have to, rather than trying to continue to lean into the preference of, we said we were going to leave at 2 and we have to do that. Well, no, we don't really. But we have plans. It's like, well, those plans can get changed or broken. That's okay. There's actually nothing wrong with that. You might not want to do it, but that doesn't mean that it can't be done.
And the thing about that, Martin, John, is sometimes when those plans do change, other things occur that are really beneficial to you.
Yeah, that's what Cece and I were just saying.
In a good way, yeah.
You never know. Your imagination. What was that? I'm sorry.
We like to call it serendipity.
Right.
Even a conversation or a face, or because we didn't set off at 2, we missed a huge traffic jam, or do you know what I mean? So that's why going with the flow kind of works.
Right. Because you might arrive where you're going after a person left that you could have been in an argument with.
Yeah.
Or who could have been, you arrive at a place and it's like, oh, we just had someone dragged off to jail because of da-da-da. And it's just like, wow, everything worked out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. When things work out, we surprise ourselves. We're like, oh my God, I can't believe it worked out that way. Why not? It works out that way every time.
And also, sometimes we just, we don't even notice. We don't even notice that it's working out.
Don't even notice all of the ways that we're being held and guided and moved. We have no idea And because we have no idea, we don't give it any credit.
And also, it's fun. It's great not knowing.
And that's what it says here. By being detached from preference, she can give herself to what is and find fulfillment there. Yeah. You don't have to know, but you can find fulfillment here, wherever it is you are. So again, I don't know what you're going through, but whatever it is, take this with you. And does that make more sense? And is that align better?
Lisa, yeah. Yeah, she's listening.
Yeah. There's a lot here. And these are what was that?
Listening and confused, because that's like the first kind of introduction. But I think that's a good one. I think that's a really good one to introduce, because it's no preference, and pretty much that's what it's showing right now.
Yeah. How's that?
So, it's interesting, isn't it?
How is it you're showing no preference?
It's just, she's just listening.
Oh, yeah.
Chilling in the heat.
Chilling in the yeah. And she's not showing any preference to the heat either.
Right.
But yeah.
That's the best.
Yeah. So, yeah. But the thing is with doubt, is something I'd like to say quickly before I disappear, is it doesn't necessarily sit in the moment that you read it, Martin, John, or we discuss it.
Right.
Sometimes those things can come up much later in the day, later in the week, in a moment, in two. And then suddenly you find, oh, yeah, that kind of, I get it. It's almost like an unnoticed notice. Do you know what I mean? It just comes to the forefront, and it, as you said, it kind of gets you to open the peripherals a little, and just receive, really. It's interesting.
Well, and that's the thing, like if you're confused about it, it'll rattle around in your mind, and you're having a subjective experience, so you're going to often attract or intuit an experience that is aligned to help you understand this. Correct. We are all connected to Tao. Yeah. Because Tao is the underlying law of all things. And this goes, to planetary stuff. It's not just people and squirrels. It's everything.
We love a But yeah, it just is everything. Every thought you've ever had, every imagination you've ever had, any visual you've ever had about anything is all Tao. Whether you believe in numbers, whether you enjoy colours, whether you are into astrology, whatever you're into, it's all Tao.
It's all Tao. And when we look at this is, and everything is true, I like to say. It's better to believe everything than not believe something, because then you're having a preference. But it is the objective truth. There is wisdom in not having a preference and not wanting things to be a certain way. Because if you wanted it to be cooler out, you'd be miserable in the heat. Yeah. But if you don't have a preference, you can be here right now as it is.
Fantastic.
Thank you. You just dropped off. I appreciate you guys coming up and reading that with me. I'm going to go ahead and read it again, just in case you're continuing to listen. Tao is infinite. It doesn't grow old or tired because it has no preference for itself. It can always persist. And that always tells me, if I don't have a preference for myself, can I always persist? It's every preference that we have can just bring us to a place of just aging and becoming more tired, exhausted at trying to get what we want. Imagine being outside in the heat and it's being like, I wish it would rain. Well, it will. It's not going to do that right now, but it will. So, you get your wish. but not having a preference at all and just accepting this as it is much easier and gives us freedom to just be here in whatever experience we're having. The master puts herself last, meaning she's not trying to get everybody to do what she wants to do. She's not trying to she's like, put myself last. And she always finds herself first. Because people appreciate that. People appreciate, I'm going to do what I want. And then you realize, but what I want isn't always that great. Like sometimes just being in the moment is better. Because I'm never in the moment, right? I want this. Let's go do that. I want this. Let's do that. What are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? By being detached from preference, she can give herself to what is and find fulfillment there. It's like even in a relationship, you want to break up with me? Okay. It's like, I can find fulfillment here too. I think a lot of times the fear, and we talked a lot about relationships yesterday, but the idea is like, in a relationship we can be fulfilled. I can be fulfilled outside of that relationship as well. I don't have to have it my way. I can just allow it to be as it is. I'm going to go ahead and reread 69, which is what started this all off today, because I know I didn't finish talking about it. And then I'm going to wrap up. If anybody else has a number, you're welcome to come up. In conflict, the master will never host aggression. She would much prefer to be a guest and relinquish space rather than claim it. This allows the host space to exhaust themselves without the master having to weaponize anything. Wanting to control through aggression is foolish. This underestimates conflict and its results. When you choose to conflict with another, you look down on them and lose your 3 lessons. By creating an enemy, you become an enemy. When 2 forces oppose each other, the one who relinquishes prevails. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow, 6 a.m. Central, 7 Eastern. And until next time, keep recovering yourself.